Hi friends, welcome back to the channel Zazen Tarot Space. Today I have brought for you this deck, Archetypes, the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck and guidebook by Kim Krantz. Would I recommend buying this deck? And what are the pros and cons? What works for me and what does not work for me in this deck? So the first thing that you feel is that it is a little difficult to push out. It's a little bulky to handle, and this is a little difficult to push out from the main box. It's a nice, decent cover, a little thin but nice. I like the art. It's very soft. It's nice, and I like the colors. I like the color combination which we see throughout the deck, in fact. And it's a magnetic pull here, so I can just lift it up like that. The one thing that I really like about this deck is the black. The way the black has been used in terms of line work, and it's a harsh use of black against a very soft watercolor use of the other things. So it's a nice combination of a very dark black with bright colors, and it brings out those dark, the bright colors even more, that contrast with black. So the one thing which is great is this guidebook, which, probably this is one of the very few guidebooks I have actually read, because it is big. Otherwise I need to go to the e-version or something like that, or maybe use some other way to kind of access it, because the point size is too small. So this has a good size. The guidebook is nice and big, and I liked so I was reading through it. I've not read through it completely, but I love the basis of the deck. So she talks about the archetypes, and it's based on the Jungian you know archetype theory, and it's a lot of different variety of decks. In fact, in the beginning, it's about, they've described what the basis is, and then the origin, her personal story about how the deck came to being, how it came to be illustrated. And then they have things like, about the deck, of course, and how it is divided. So that is described. And then using the cards. So this was an interesting part for me, how to use the cards. And it's a lot about, see, the information given here is quite nice and quite comprehensive. It's enough to understand the card, but I really like the way they've kind of really left it open for interpretation. It's a very personal bond with each card. Okay, so it's a lot about your personal interpretation too. And then they have different spreads that you can explore with the deck. And then card rotation. This was interesting because this is always interesting in circular decks. So I'm really looking forward to how it plays out in this particular deck. But I think it's more on the advanced side. Once we are comfortable with the cards, then we can move on to card rotation. So it'll take a while. And then, of course, each card has been explained within its, little division, subdivision, heads and subheads. So, uh, and one thing that I really liked is they have their description. Okay, so the illustrator has their description of the card, and then they've given how we can explore what we can read. They have some nice references given. There's some poems or some reading material, some references, something that you can listen to understand the card better, to relate to the card at a personal level, which is interesting. So the explanation of each card is there. Of course, the cards are in black and white. This is in duotone, red and black. And, it's a lot of cards actually for an oracle deck. It's a huge number of cards. It'll be quite a lot of deep dive to get comfortable with all the cards. So you will need patience to understand the deck. But the good part is that a lot of the archetypes are, everyday things that we relate to, like basic things, mother, father, even stubborn, even though things sound a little complex, but the basic, uh, what should I say, the basic understanding of each card is something that we are quite used to in everyday life and we can relate to. So it's not so difficult understanding the deck. It's actually, some of them are really quite easy to relate to, and some of course are a little on the deeper end. Let's look at the cards. So it's a single ribbon which pulls out the card. Now it's been well done in that sense, and again pulls out the circular uh, card holder, card box, and inside it's plain and simple with some bare minimalistic stuff. Okay, so I'll put this away and I'll take out the cards. Okay, now the back of the card is something I was not too pleased with. The size is amazing. I know that I hear this a lot from people, that it's an oversized deck, it's too huge. How do you hold something like that? How do you shuffle something like that? I am particularly fond of differently sized and differently shaped decks, and this one has both. It is a little huge, so it's differently sized and it is differently shaped. I have always been fond of experimenting with different shapes of decks. So I also like the fact that they have a box here. So if I'm not using this big box, and if I'm done with the guidebook, understanding it and all, then I can just keep this in this. Otherwise, some circular decks do not come with a separate box and they get spoiled very easily. So this is interesting. Now, do I like the back? Okay, it does look like a diamond. uh, do I like it? I'm not sure whether I like the back, honestly, uh, especially because it feels pixelated. So yeah, there could have been something more on the back, is what I felt. Let us look at the cards themselves now, first to begin with. Okay, the art style. Before the art style, I love the size. I love that it is big, and when I put it, there is so much to see. I do not like decks in which I have to struggle to see the details. Here I can see the details. Do I like the cardstock? It's okay. It's decent. Reasonably okay. Yeah. I love the illustration style. I was a little inhibitant about buying this deck because uh, this deck is a little, like I was unsure about whether I would like this particular art. But I do. I really do. It looks great when it is in front of you because this contrast, it has a black and white theme basically. And then you see this extremely colorful watercolor theme around it. So I'm not sure whether it's watercolor or they've used ink or something like that. But uh, because it looks really bright. If it's watercolor, then it's really bright. But the brightness, the sheer brightness of the colors, as contrasted to the black and white, really adds to the contrast. It's a lot about, since it's a circular deck, maybe that ways, or maybe it is circular because it is themed that way. I see a lot of, circular things in the deck. Also, there's a use of a lot of traditional, uh, even animals and other things which stand for a lot of things, like this archetype. I think because the snake is there, because it stands for something. So it's a lot about, you see a lot of traditional things in here. I like the artwork. I know that I have heard this a lot said for this deck, that I don't like collage work or I don't like this kind of art, but I really liked this artwork, especially because of the use of this, this crazy use of texture. And then you have texture, and then you have it with, so in terms of art, it's beautifully done. Some cards have completely different use of a different, what should I say, illustration style has been used. So here, if you see, so it does feel fresh, very fresh. Looking at it, do I immediately connect to it? I do. So it's the kind of deck, even if I did not read anything about it, I would connect to it, to a lot of the cards. You can actually connect to a lot of the cards. When you look at it, you get some idea what the deck is about, what the card is trying to say. It does feel like a lot of cut and paste and collage work, yes. But overall, it does feel nice. And then you'll also see the variation from card to card, okay. uh, it's also about, I would say each card is unique in itself because you do see a certain amount of variety there. So a lot of the themes, like the poet here, I really connect to immediately. And then there's a certain amount of mystery. So enough has been said on the card, yet it is not completely revealed. So you can, add your own thing. You can read it intuitively. especially some of the cards suddenly jump out with color, and it is really, kind of, what should I say? Mm, it feels intense. The cards feel intense. It comes across as a very mature deck to begin with. I will have to see how I work with it, and then I'll be able to give you some more about how it works. But on first glance, I love the color, I love the artwork, I love the size and the shape. The cardstock is nice, it's not bad at all. Uh, yes, I do feel I connect to a lot of the cards immediately. Some cards, when you look at them, you're not able to connect the visual to the title immediately. Like the pilgrim is there, and then you have a mountain. Some things you can connect and some you cannot. And I guess that is what gives it that extra dimension. And I guess when we eventually get down to reading, it is that lack of complete connection that will actually, add the extra little thing which you find in every reading. You want to see something new each time you read. So that is something I'm looking forward to, how it'll kind of, pop up. Because some decks really have something extra. Each time you do a reading, you see a deck and you see something new which you hadn't seen before. So how this oracle deck will add to that, I'm keen on seeing. What I find interesting is that some things could actually be comic, and yet the illustrator has managed to make them look uh, so serious. I mean, imagine this could actually look comic, but it doesn't. Not just this, a lot of, okay, this one is comic, fine, it is titled comic, but a lot of other cards also could actually be, collage is not exactly a very serious style, and yet it has a very serious and a deep tone to the deck. So I think I'm gonna love experimenting with this one. The temple. They've shown, so the best thing is being an archetype. They've shown the, they've just shown enough and then left the rest to the imagination. I would love to read what they have to say about the box in the guidebook. The threshold. So a lot of things come to my mind when I look at the threshold. Do I want to cross it? Do I not want to cross it? So in that sense, I find this deck multidimensional. It does throw up questions. The storm. Am I gonna pull through it, or am I gonna get kind of lost in it? It leaves a lot of room for imagination. When I look at it, that's the first impression I get, and I love that. the riddle. Sword. Okay, the venom, the offering. Some of them are so simply and beautifully done. In terms of art, it is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, I must say. So I will recommend this if you are fond of differently sized decks. I'll also shuffle it and show it to you. And differently shaped decks too. And I will definitely recommend it for someone who is ready to put in that much time to get to know the deck. Let me see how this shuffles. Okay, it does tend to roll out a bit out of the hand. It's not too slippery. The fear is if you have a candle burning around, it can really roll out and reach there. So we do need to be careful. But once you get used to it, it's not so tough at all. Yeah, it's not that tough. It's not as easy as a rectangular deck. It can do that, but then even rectangular decks can do that, right? So this can happen with any deck. So it's okay. But the good part is it's easier to pull out, then something sticks out and it's easier to pull out. The cardstock right now is tending to stick, so it is not completely, yeah, so I can pull out. Yeah. And the best part is the rotations. That is something I'm looking forward to reading. The card rotations. Okay, so I think it's a deck worth buying, despite a couple of things that I'm not too fond of, like the back, and maybe this feels a little too weak. But apart from that, I think it's a really deck worth having, especially because it is circular and it is big, and it's a deep deck. Bye bye.